Alright, a few more tools to show you here inside Photoshop for getting your images to look their best. I'm going to go and open up an image called horizon.jpg. He's inside the Chapter 7 folder, which is inside the Project Files folder, which is sitting on your desktop. Now, here's our image here. He looks pretty dark. There's a lot of dark pixels inside this image. But this is a great image for me to show you the toning tools here in Photoshop. You'll find your toning tools about halfway down inside the toolbox. We have Dodge, Burn, and Smudge. These three tools mimic traditional darkroom techniques, as a matter of fact. I'll start off with Dodge here. I'll crank up my brush size here using the close square bracket on my keyboard. And what the Dodge tool is going to do is simply lighten areas of my image. All I'm going to do is click and drag inside my image here. You can see how those greens are starting to get pulled out there. What you wouldn't want to do with this tool, though, is go too far. You can actually damage the image here. So I've gone a little bit too far. I'll just hit my favorite key on the keyboard here inside Photoshop, which is F12, to take me all the way back to where I started. So maybe in more of a practical sense, I might do something like this, just to kind of lighten up some of the areas inside the foreground here. So the Dodge tool, all he's going to do is simply lighten areas of the image. That's all it's doing. This, of course, mimics dodging light during a photograph's exposure inside a darkroom. And I find using nice, big, soft brushes works best as well. The next guy inside the toning tool is the Burn tool. All this guy is going to do is darken areas of the image. So I'll crank my brush up nice and big. I find a nice, large, soft-edged brush works great for this guy as well. You can see I'm darkening up these clouds inside the image. Again, be careful though. You don't want to go too far because you can actually start damaging your image here a little bit. So I'm just going to pull some of the detail out of the sky here. Something like that. What's neat is I can hold down the Option key here on the Mac or Alt on the Windows side, and that will toggle me back to the Dodge tool for a second. So I can lighten areas here. This is with Option down or Alt. Let go of the Option key, and I'm back onto the Burn tool. As for the Smudge tool, what he's going to do is increase or decrease saturation. What's saturation? Well, the intensity or the amount of color inside my image. Maybe I want to make the colors really pop inside this foreground area here. Well, what I'm actually doing when I'm clicking here is I'm actually pulling color out. If I look up on my options bar, the mode right now is set to desaturate. I want to bring the colors out, so I'm going to switch this guy to saturate. And then start clicking inside this foreground area here. Maybe down into the bottom right area here. Or, of course, as you just saw, I can pull color out if I want by going with desaturate. Maybe I'll pull some of the color out of the clouds here, this sort of thing. You can actually achieve some pretty neat photographic effects using your Smudge tool as well. So there's your toning tools. The other set of tools that you have are called your focus tools, and they live right next door. We have the blur tool, the sharpen tool, and the smudge tool. These guys are really, really easy to work with. The blur tool, any guesses what he does? I'll crank up my brush size and I'll show you here. All this guy is going to do is blur the image. Again, maybe for some sort of special effects or something like that. I'm going to crank my strength up here. Up on the options bar. Really start to blur things maybe inside the sky, something like that. The opposite to blurring is sharpening, and I find this guy is probably one of the most destructive tools inside Photoshop. As a matter of fact, I never use him. What you can wind up doing is sharpening the pixels inside your image beyond repair. I'll crank up the strength here so you can see how this guy works. There, see that? Destruction. Alright, last but not least, I have my smudge tool. If I decide that I want to start smudging some of the pixels inside my image, something like this here, I can actually pull areas of my image inside Photoshop. Now, as you can see, Photoshop's having a tough time keeping up with what I'm trying to do here. Give it a second here. So there's a look at the smudge tool there. Yeah, sometimes Photoshop has a tough time keeping up with that. Anyway, so there is the Dodge, Burn, and Smudge tool. And don't forget, you also saw the Smudge, Blur, and Sharpen tools. So there you go. There's a look at some of the toning tools and some of the focus tools here inside Photoshop.